Welcome to the first bonus episode of the Growing Our Future in Weekly County Schools podcast. I'm Director of Communications, Erica Moore, and we're excited to bring you a high-energy episode today called First and Goal with the Head Coaches. Director of Schools Jeff Cupples and our district's head football coaches. We've got Dresden head coach Justin Cruse. Our Gleason head coach Noah Lampkins is joining us, as well as Greenfield's head coach Don Pitt and Westview's head coach Matt McConnell. They're going to come today to share some ideas on how extracurricular activities like football help our students build character and resilience. They'll dive into what it really means to instill values in our players, like sportsmanship and grit, the importance of team chemistry, and some behind-the-scenes insights about strategies and tactics on the football field. This is one of those sports fans episodes that you will not want to miss. So let's jump right in.
All right, coaches, thank you for being on the Weekly County Growing Our Future podcast today, and appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure your principals, I want to say thank you to our principals for making sure they can cover your class so you can come out and have a conversation about an important topic in our schools, and that's extracurricular activities, specifically football. I know how much time it takes for you guys to be away from your family and what it takes to run a football program, so we've got a few questions and items and topics to just talk about today about our football programs in Weekly County and just football in general. So just have a good time, and let's talk about something that we're all passionate about today. And we know our county's passionate about it, and we thought it's football season, why not get together and let's talk some ball. What's it like coaching where you graduated from? Being at home and even Coach Cruse, I know maybe you graduated from Westview, but being at Dresden, you're still in Weekly County. But what's that like leading your alma mater as far as coaching?
Oh, I enjoy it. Being around the people that know me even when I was younger and grew up, and they know my story and know what I'm about, and it's a big thing, and it's a lot of pride in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits because you're familiar with the situation that you're in at the school and the challenges that there are, especially with Greenfield and Gleason being smaller schools, and the challenge, you understand the challenges because, Don and I both played football there, and we'd play every snap, on everything. So we understand what it takes to compete at a school like that. So you're able to get that message across to your kids, and it's real and it's genuine because you've done it, So there's that, but it's challenging because, everybody knows you, so that's a good thing, but that's also, it can be some challenges there because everybody knows you, so it's kind of hard to get away sometimes from it. If you have a bad game and there's some event and you just don't really want to talk about it, and everybody wants to come up and talk about it, and you just have to kind of swallow it a little bit and deal with it. So, but doing it for 23 years, it's it's been something I've learned to deal with the right way, and I know that if I don't need to go somewhere, if I just want to stay home, it's just what I do.
That's right. Well, let's now that we've talked a little bit about how you got here, let's go back to who's poured into you, because I know that's what you're doing every day. You're pouring into our students. So, Coach Pitt, let's start with you on that end. Let's go back this way. Who's a mentor who's poured into you, or maybe a coach that you kind of put on that pedestal and say, hey, I want to be like that person. So, do you have a mentor that's helped you out?
Along the way, Coach Blackman has always been my go-to guy. He was my junior high coach, high school coach, Mr. Jerry DeVini, helped me along the way. And there's been many coaches along the way that's really stepped in and pushed me in the right direction.
That's good. Coach Cruse?
I think as an assistant, Coach Rain was a guy that I looked up to a lot. Just getting to come see how he did things here, and he brought a little bit different, mentality and I guess scheme-wise from East Tennessee, which is something that isn't completely familiar with Tennessee or West Tennessee at the time. And then, once I went and became a head coach, I actually got really close with Coach Kirby. It's down in Covington. Had a lot of success down there, and he's coached in many different places. So we got pretty, regular talking, and I'd have moments where I'd need some advice, being new to the area and have different situations and challenges, as Noah's saying. So we just kind of grew into a friendship from that point forward to where, we talk every so often this day. And if there's something to come to a point where I felt like that I was kind of, being troubled with a conversation, somebody I always felt like I could call, and he's just going to be straight up honest with me if I'm in the wrong or I need to do something different. And likewise, he's called and asked me similar things. So I think we built a great relationship, and I kind of lean on him.
still call him and ask him about schemes, what I need to do Friday?
Well, every once in a while, it's a little different now when we're not running the wing tee. He's a wing tee guy. He was really extra instrumental for us being in the wing tee there because for me it was fairly new. Blake, who was my OC at the time, his dad wearing the wing tee forever, Coach Stegall, and so we obviously asked him a lot of questions too. But Coach Kirby brought a different aspect to it because they run a little differently and whatnot. So him helping us do that and us ended up in the same region and he continued to do so. I always thought that was really cool of him.
Yeah, it's good to have that mentor to call because I know when I was coaching, I'd usually call every other week or so if I saw something new, especially when I first started, and say, "Hey, help me out." And having that guy to call really helps. Coach McConnell,
I've been blessed, honestly, with being around some really good football coaches. Coach Sharp, I was with him for 7, 8 years. Coach Bobby was there at the time. We had a guy that was there, coached at Tennessee, Mike Pack. He was from Georgia. That was really sharp. That I learned a lot of defense from. And then when I had the opportunity to go to Brighton and coach with Coach Will Wolf, he was kind of like you was talking about earlier. We were throwing the ball around, and that was 2011, which was kind of unheard of, and spreading it around to everybody. So I was, I had gone from wing tee to learning that, and he was just always there, mentor like he was talking about, and just a great guy. Teaches you, he taught me a lot of things, how to do things the right way.
right?
And his big thing was, which I've carried on, is relationships, building a relationship with the kids, and being there. And I think that's, as you young coach, you get in, you're looking for wins, and then as you get older, you start realizing how much more important other things are besides just winning and losing.
That's right. We're going to get into that here just in a second. Coach, you mentioned your mentor earlier, but
Yeah, Mike Bennett has probably been the biggest influence on me in my just football career in general. When I was at Lambeth, I was a kid that come out of high school. I was a good player at Gleason, but I wasn't ready to play college football, and took me several years to get to that point. And I wanted to, there was a time where I was going to transfer to UTM and just finish college, and I talked to Mike Bennett about it. I remember seeing him at a basketball game I came home to, and he told me, he said, "You just need to stick with it. Give it one more year and see how it goes." And I did that, and I ended up being an All-American at Lambeth. And I always give Mike credit for that because he's the one that gave me that push to stick with it. And I'm very thankful for that. And then when I become the head coach at Gleason, he was just real instrumental in just helping me, become a man. I wasn't ready to be a man per se. All the responsibilities and all of those things. And he was a great role model and a great mentor. And he had been doing it for several years. And I really leaned on him hard, scheme wise, offensively, there for those first few years. And he's just a really great person and a great role model and a great guy in the community at Gleason.
I was thinking when I first started coaching, especially I started out as a freshman assistant first year. I was 20 years old, and I was sitting there thinking, how do I make a practice plan that's effective? It's kind of like teaching. How do you make a good lesson plan? It's like I don't know how to roll this practice plan out. And if it wasn't for a guy named Heath Wood sitting me down and say, "Look, this is what you think about. This is how your tape study rolls into your practice plan." And anyway, I think we all, no matter what profession it is, you got to have that mentor that you lean on and to kind of show you the ropes. This is open for any of you if you want to comment on it, but what about, extracurricular activities, as Miss Erica mentioned in the intro, is huge. The research is solid. If a kid will get plugged in, get involved with something after school, their likelihood of having success in high school just goes up substantially. So in terms of football, as our head coaches, what would you say to those students or families that are out there who are not involved with the football program? So what would you say to a first-time player or somebody who hadn't played at all, maybe recruit them out for your team? Any thoughts?
I think it's just important for them to be part of a team, no matter, whatever it is. Learn how to work with other people,
Right.
have a common goal that everybody's working towards. And, one of the neat things about football or any sport, I think, is when you see a group of people that have a common goal and they're always being pulled different directions, but when you get those guys going in the same direction or whatever it is, and then they accomplish that goal, it's very rewarding as a coach to see that. And I think it helps the kids as they go on in life, being part of a team and realizing how to work with people, because I would say some of my assistant coaches would say it's tough to work with me sometimes, but we're a team and we work together and figure out the things we have to figure out. So that's what I think is important for them, being part of something.
Yeah.
you learn to deal with, adversity. In football, like Coach Cruse and I were talking earlier about all the situations and craziness that goes on, and all the you get people sick and people hurt, and all the adversity that you have to deal with as a coach, and then the adversity the players have to deal with in games when things don't go well. And I think we've probably all been there before as adults and our families. You think everything's going smooth, and your AC unit goes out, and here you go, $8,000 out the door, and so life's not always gonna go the way you want it to go and go smooth and everything be hunky dory per se, but football teaches you that. It's all about forgetting that last play and going on to the next one, dealing with adversity. If it's adversity of a coach coaching you hard, kids in today's society struggle with that. They struggle with being coached hard and being critiqued, and they're going to have to learn to do that because they're going to go get a job, and their boss is going to critique them and and lead them hard in some ways. So right. I think it's good for that.
Yeah.
One thing you got to realize is that there's so many jobs and opportunities for many things that the kid can do, and that you ain't got to be the star running back or the biggest lineman or anything like that. There's you get out there and you get involved, and you'll figure out something that you're good at and that you can help the team out on.
That's true. There's a position for everybody.
Yeah, there's something on a football team that every student can get involved in and help out with.
Yep.
Yeah, every position is a skill sport or a skill position. Like in basketball, you got to be able to shoot a jump shot and successfully be successful in that. Baseball, hitting a fastball is not easy as it looks. You got to stand in the box, and there's a lot of stuff that goes in mechanically. Pitching football is talking about linemen. If you can just be a tough kid that wants to get after it, I can make you a good lineman.
Right.
These guys have proven they can make a good lineman. As simple as having someone that can hold. On a field goal, you don't have to be extremely athletic, but if you can catch the ball and you got good nerves, you can hold on to that ball and trust the guy that's kicking it. That's a huge job when it comes down to the end of a game or just getting those extra points in a game. But I think accountability is a big one. Just teaching kids to be responsible for showing up every day, day in and day out. Or there's consequences, whether it's running or it's just playing time or whatnot. In our society today, a lot of young people have trouble with that if they're not taught that. And I think just showing up alone and having that ability to, even if I don't feel good this day or I'm not really into it today, but continue to show up and come with at least a smile on your face, or at least even if it's fake, and get after it, I think goes a long way for setting them up for their work future.
Right. With society changing, and I guess that's up for debate. Maybe it's on episode to itself, but statistically across the country, football numbers are going down. And I think it's important, that we're recruiting those hallways, and because I think people, maybe because of myths or media or whatever, they're forming, or maybe just other sports they're playing, but keeping those kids out, because football, I remember I did a paper on that. The Japanese proverb, I think it was, fall down 7 times, get up 8. And that was football was the sport where I literally and figuratively got knocked on my rear end, but I had to get up every time. And going back to being tough and being accountable, and people are depending on you. And other team sports do that, but I think football is unique because of the physicality of the game that teaches that for a young man. So let's flip a little bit. So if we've talked about recruiting a student who's never played, how do you go about working with other head coaches in your schools as far as multi-sport athletes? I mean, what are your thoughts on trying to get that kid? Because I know the emphasis in society now is I got to play one thing. So how do we get these kids involved in multiple sports?
I think communication is important. You got to communicate, have open lines of communication with the other coaches. And, Coach Riggs and I, baseball and football being the 2 major sports, Coach Riggs is our head boys basketball coach, and we have a great communication. I'll do my stuff in the mornings in the summer. You have your stuff in the afternoons, and every now and then those schedules overlap. And if you've communicated openly, then you can deal with those. Right. There's no tension there. So we have a good relationship. And small schools, we got to share all our athletes, and I think it's a good thing. I think communication's the key.
That's good.
Yeah, I think Coach is right. On communication, having a calendar. We try to have a calendar where we can get ahead of it before somebody has something scheduled, and But I think all our coaches all want the kids to play multiple sports, and I tell the kids all the time, you're only a kid once. Play as much as you can. And we're fortunate to have quite a few kids that play, like 3 sports. Have one plays 4 sports. So it's, I think coaches working together and providing the opportunity for the kids to better play is important.
Right.
I think each individual sport, brings a different element out of each kid too. Baseball's so mental. I think when you talk about quarterbacks and receivers and whatnot, just the focus alone, baseball players usually fit those positions pretty well, just because they're always thinking, especially if you're a pitcher. If you're a pitcher, you're constantly thinking and having to battle adversity the whole game, how you're throwing and whatnot. And so playing quarterback, it always seems that pitchers make good quarterbacks for the most part. But I just think every sport brings some different element athletically out of each kid. There's things in basketball they're going to focus on more than they're going to focus at football, but that doesn't mean they can't bring it back. So I always encourage them to play every sport, because not only that, but you can also, you don't know if a kid's going to be better at another sport than he is at football. Right. Or vice versa. The kid's better at football than he was basketball. And in order for their greatest opportunity to be successful, if they do have college aspirations or athletic college aspirations, then you got to go see all of that and get different coaching as well, because every coach coaches differently. And the more voices you can get coached up by, the better you're going to be when you do hit the workplace or even college, whatnot, because not everybody's going to be the same.
Right. So essentially what I'm hearing is it's important for the coaching staff and that athletic director to all be on the same page, and preaching the same message.
Yeah, the understanding that that the in season sport is going to take the primary,
Right.
and if all the coaches understand that, and they're not trying to pull the players during the season, it's something that is doable, and it benefits the kids.
Yeah. I was at a coaching conference in Atlanta, the Glazier Clinic, and I can't remember who I was listening to, but I remember writing this note down. I hung on to it. The one thing I can't give a kid in the off season, no matter how intense I try to get my drills, is I can't make them compete, because it's not a competition. It may be playing for a position, but the reason we want them playing those multiple sports is we all want competitors, and the only way you learn to be a competitor is you got to compete. So you need to be on the court, on the field, playing, competing to win all the time. So that mental toughness is developed across all sports. So that's always hung on to that. Let me read a quote to you, and then I want to get your take on it as far as how you pull this off as a head coach, running your program. The quote is, "Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times." So as a head football coach, through your program, how do you create strong young men? So this kind of speaks to what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to build some of the things you talked about earlier. That's open for anybody.
You got to start by putting them in tough situations.
Okay.
Put them to the fire. You can't expect them to handle it in a great manner on Friday night if you're not doing it during practice. And it's hard. Especially when you got number issues, and you can't set the tempo that you want in practice. But it's got to be a day to day. It's got to be a struggle, and there's no doubt that when you go through the hard times, it makes you tougher in the long end, and that's what you got to treat practice as. And you just got to, if it seems like it's getting easy on them, you got to find something else to put on them and keep it a challenge.
Yeah.
So I think you got to be consistent in the way you do things, and if you do, I think I read a quote one time where it says, sometimes less is more. Daily drills. You want to do those things and be consistent at doing them, and do them a certain way and at a certain pace. And I think if you coach consistently and you have the same message, and then there's no mixed, you're creating that tone, and I think that's worked for us.
Just recently we just kicked off our weekly youth leadership program. Where you've got students from each of our high schools. Great program. But even, if you get into to the individual high schools and you look at student council, one thing, and again, this is not just a Weakley County thing, it's been a national thing, is the young males and boys in our schools are not taking on that leadership kind of role. I think out of all those kids, I think there was only 3 or 4 males, boys that are in the youth leadership for our county. Now, that's great because, there for a while in society, we're trying to fight, swing it the other way and get more girls opportunities. So we've come a long way with that. But I think one thing I've noticed, this is just not me as a superintendent or a former coach, just me as a person watching society, young men are not stepping up and leading. And I'm seeing that in our schools. And so I was just curious to see, how you think you build that through football. Next question I want to ask kind of comes off of building that individual character, but broadens it out. So, there's a book out there that's titled, it's something to the effect that before you win on the field, you got to win in the locker room. So as head coaches, what do you do as far as like chemistry and bringing all those individuals together to build that team? So what do you do to build chemistry before you start a season?
I think it's kind of goes back to that last question. You have a standard that you set, and the kids kind of know what to expect, and then that's how you have to be. We try to treat them all the same, but differently. But the accountability is all the same for being here on time, or you don't skip reps on this or whatever. Everybody's the exact same. And I think once you establish that, then your kids show up every day and they know what to expect.
Right.
They know. Like our thing is we want to play fast and be physical, and they know that, and that's no different in practice than it is anywhere else. And if somebody's not doing that, then that's one thing that they know. That's going to be held accountable. And then also you get those into, like you're talking about, they start holding each other accountable in that. So you develop the leadership because they see, this is our standard, this is what we want to do. So if you're not doing it, then it's our job to step up and get you to do that.
Right.
So that's been good to see with the kids taking ownership and, making it their own.
Yeah.
I think like in the off season, it's huge. Just like getting in the weight room, you do things like we've done in the past. Is you break up into like 6 or 8 man teams, and that's for the off season. And you have little competitions every so often with some rewards. But like Coach is saying, one person messes up, it's not just him getting punished. The 8 of them are going to be punished. And what it does is it creates that accountability he's talking about. Where now somebody's going to step up because they're tired of doing the extra stuff,
right.
And they're going to help that person get better, whether it's showing up, whether it's skipping reps, they're going to be accountable for them too. And what it tends to do is you see on Friday nights that it just becomes natural where they're used to that now, and they're going to be accountable for each other. They're going to hold them to the fire themselves, and it takes a little bit out of your hands, which when you start to get team culture and the team starting to take that on, it just seems things really take off.
Yeah. That's such a big point right there you made. True success as a head coach is when the players are holding each other accountable and not you and the staff. Mm-hmm. That's when you've kind of hit your pinnacle, I think. So, any other thoughts as far as how you build your chemistry? Do y'all do like summer camps? Are y'all still doing that, or kind of challenges and things that you do during the summer?
Yeah, 2-a-days that time of the year. That's a lot when you develop your chemistry with your team, and you're spending a lot of time out on the practice field, also in the meeting rooms on the board, and they start seeing how serious you are about it, and they start buying in, and then your really good teams is like y'all just said is when the players take over.
Yeah. That's great when you sit back and watch it, see how it grows.
It's so different though now with like the 2-a-days, than how it once was when you could do 2-a-days.
So you went off to camp forever, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's way different today. You can only have one padded practice.
Yeah.
Where you go out and it's hard to. That's tough now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rules are against it a little bit now as far as what you can do, but mental stuff is what's something you can get out of it, and even team building exercises and whatnot. But I can remember going to Bethel as a freshman with Coach Cody and them, and we had 3-a-days.
Yeah, we had 3 days at Lambeth.
I don't know if my body ever hurt like that in my life as a freshman, and plus they shaved their head. It was kind of a little rite of passage back then, and you're sunburnt and whatnot. But looking back, it was some of the best times just because you kind of built some character yourself, found out who you were, and obviously your shortcomings and what you need to work on, and then seeing those older guys day in and day out for every hour of the day, how they carried themselves and whatnot. It just made you think a lot about like who you wanted to be and what you wanted to be when you got to that age too. So as little as that 4-year window was, it helped you grow up a lot just going to camp like that and being away from mom and dad.
Yeah, we called them all days at Lambeth.
All days.
2-a-days. I wish it was 2-a-days.
Yeah.
And you look back, you're better for it, and that goes back to how sport, and particularly football, builds that stronger mentality to tackle on those. Like you're talking about the HVAC going out. Life's going to hit you in the face, so it won't always be a defensive tackle hit you in the face, but life's going to keep hitting you in the face, and you better be ready to handle that. Well, let's switch gears and let's talk X's and O's a little bit. Let's go around the table. Tell me what system, offensive, defensive scheme you learned first and studied, kind of committed? And what was your first scheme, Coach?
I think the first scheme that I really learned, and you're never really a master at anything, but the first one I learned, it felt like I was good at. We were a double wing team for years. We were a hybrid wing tee. Wes Elrod, a guy that I learned that system from, went to multiple clinics. Brian Guthrie, a guy he's the head coach at Rockvale. He knew Wes, so we had some private meetings with him, and he's just a guru of gurus when it comes to the hybrid wing tee system. And we learned it from him and implemented it for years, and it really worked. You had to be physical and tough and a little bit nasty, and we've gotten away from that a little bit. The type of kids that we have now, we can't really run that system anymore. But that's the first one that I really learned and mastered, and it's a fun offense. But things are different. Not many people are running it now.
Yeah. Coach Elrod, was he O-line with?
He was
Herschel
O-line. He
Moore?
was O-line with Herschel Moore. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was
He
thinking. You said that name, that
coached
triggered.
at Wilson Central too. He was the OC there for several years too.
But what about on defense? What was the first scheme you studied?
The 4-4 was the first thing I studied, and I like the 3-4 better. Once I've learned that, Farrell Trim, the Rydell rep, everybody's familiar with Farrell Trim. He came over for a few days one time, and we learned the 3-4 from him, and it was really good. He's a good guy installing that. So I like the 3-4 best, and when you got the guys to run it, you got to run with the kids that you got.
That's right. Yeah. Coach McConnell?
So small world. First, mine was wing tee too, but Coach Herschel Moore, coached with us at Lewis County.
Yeah.
So it's the same system Coach was talking about.
Was he still
wing
wearing
tee.
penny loafers?
He sure was every day. It was that man knew more football than anybody I've ever been around in my life. But that was the first system I really learned, and it was amazing learning it. The multitude of what all was involved in it was
The formations and how the linemen are tagged.
and
It's
tell everybody
in
what to
depth.
do on every
Yeah.
single play. It's the play's this long when you say it, and but then that and the split six is what I learned the first defense, and it was split forward, but we call it split six because that's had evolved from the 6-2 into walking those guys off, and it's just amazing how the game's changed in the short amount of time it has.
Coach Moore, he, of course, my mentor used to be a defense coordinator at Cumberland when Coach Moore was there. Heath Woods was his name. And but State got connected to Coach Moore in the wing tee, so that's what we ran. But a funny story was, he called down there and he said, "If y'all aren't running the jet sweep, you got to start running it tomorrow." And we're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Crap, you ain't got to block anybody."
Yep.
I mean, you got to block anybody. So when we finally sat down with him, he handed me his playbook on the jet, just the jet sweep.
Yep.
And it was probably about 100 pages on how to block everybody.
Handwritten.
And I was like, "You said we didn't have to block anybody." So, to him, not blocking anybody was 100 pages worth of notes, on how to block it. So he was a character.
Yes, it was.
Coach, first schemes.
Offensively, I probably didn't deep dive into offense because I didn't play in college and whatnot until I got to Dresden the first time. That was with Rain.
Right.
Not that I was calling the offense or whatever. I just was fascinated by the spread and just how he ran it. He ran, talking about jet sweep, we ran jet sweep quite often under him. He believed that everything played off the jet sweep, which I didn't understand in the beginning. But, just kind of understanding how you formation people, trying to get, open spots and where to throw it to. And then, of course, how the run game works well, the spread when you get people out of the box and, what you're looking for and whatnot. Defensively, I would say the 3-4 was the first one I learned, and that was in college. I was actually under Willie Tillman, was our DC, big 3-4 multiple guy. And I got really into it and was going to actually stay on in GA, and then we actually had a coaching change from that year. The whole staff almost pretty much left, including the DC, at the end of my senior year, so I decided to do other things. And then when I got with Coach Rang, he actually simplified the 3-4 for me even more when I got back because obviously college terminology is a little different, how we look at things. But we still run that defense today and can make it look like anything, whether we want it to look like a 4-4, a 4-3, 4-2. Just by simple calls. So I think 3-4 is probably the thing I'm probably most well versed in because of Coach Rain. So
You got to be multiple in today's football world. You're not just known for one scheme. I've learned that too. You got to be able to adapt.
yeah, it has an answer for everything.
That's right. Coach Pitt?
Well, I'd have to say that in talking to players, also is studying film as a player. is where I started learning football. I feel like that made me a better player. And then moving on out of playing with Coach Wallace, learned the power eye, a lot of tight end sets, downhill football, pulling, guards, and counter. And then moving on 3 years down the road, Coach Freeze came in with a style of offense that mixed the two-back power sets with the spread.
Right.
And that's kind of where I've really bought into it and enjoyed that type of offense. And we were high-paced. And, at single A football, you really can't be high-paced because the guys turn around and play defense. So that's a different thing. But, if I was fully able of being that type of offense, I think that's what I'd like to see.
The tempo.
Yeah, the tempo is really something that helps with the offense. But that's kind of where I dove in and spending time with them guys. And defense, I would have to say that, setting up the scout team, coaching college at Lambeth, the 4-3 was a lot of where I probably learned the defensive scheme first. And we run the 3-4 now. So that's probably because, at 4-3, there's a lot of pressure on the outside linebackers and another thing is we don't have as many D linemen at Greenfield where we kind of stay with the 3-4.
Yeah. I remember the first time I had the defense coordinator come in and ask me, he said, I want to run a 3-4. And I was like, that's crazy. I mean, that's suicide. I mean, we're not putting 3 men, 3 down linemen. I mean, no, 4 or nothing, And but now you're just about committing suicide if you don't line up in some kind of 3-man front with the way the offenses have evolved over time. So let me ask you a question about quarterbacks for a second. A lot of times, I say a lot of times I'll watch ball games on Saturday and Sunday, and I'll hear an analyst say something to the effect that the quarterback position is the hardest position in all of sports to play. Now, agree or disagree, but I use that thought process that they talk about sometimes on these other shows to say, what as head coaches do y'all look for in a quarterback? So what characteristics are you looking for to play quarterback?
I think leadership, number one, because they're the guy that's got to be coach on the field. They got to be able to handle situations when it gets tough and keep everybody else calm, not just themselves, because something's going to go wrong.
Right.
When it does, they got to be the guy that smooths that over and gets everybody. And then those guys also got to believe in them at the same time. If they don't, then it's no good. And I think quarterback is a tough position. I mean, I know for what we ask out of them is a lot.
Right.
And I know that going into it, and we expect them to mentally study the game and see before they ever play it, because they got to call a lot of protection stuff, and they have different reads based on what the team's doing, and it is a position I think that without a leader there, it's tough to get everybody on board. But
So before arm strength, 40 time, squat max, any of these other metrics, you look for leadership first.
yes,
Okay.
I think you have to have that.
All right. What about the rest of you? Similar or?
Yeah, I think leadership's obviously a huge one. Just be a tough kid mentally and physically. Because what as well as I do, that no matter what happens on offense, if it's wrong, it's the quarterback's fault.
Right.
So he's got to be able to take that, and obviously he's going to get coached pretty hard from the coaches because they always seem to yelling at him, and it's not really yelling at him, it's just the expectations for him to communicate everything and have everybody on the same page and whatnot, and use that leadership the coach is talking about. So I think toughness is as important as anything, mentally and physically.
Okay. All right. Well, let me let's switch then with that. Let's talk about innovations, because we were talking about before we actually started the podcast. I've been out of the game so long; it's amazing how much it's changed. So let's talk innovations in football. So since we're talking about X's and O's a little bit, what about the RPO? I mean, what are y'all's thoughts about RPOs in high school? Because I know that was not a thing the last time I was coaching. So anybody want to speak to that, or maybe to tell the audience what it is first of all?
As a defensive guy, I think it should be illegal.
Okay.
I think it's great.
All right. So let's lead out with that. Why? Well, first of all, explain what it is then. Some of the people watching may not know.
It's a run-pass option. I mean, depending on who you're playing, it's all different. Whether they're throwing slants behind you. I mean, there's some cats that can throw verts off of it quick. Bubbles and screens are easy as well. But it just puts the defense in such a bind. You can be right but be wrong at the same time, reading your key and whatnot. And that's the whole point of it offensively. I think it's something that offensive guys collectively got together and decided to keep defensive coordinators up at night with. It's just tough.
And it's evolved, I think originally the RPO game was more pre-snap. You got the run called. You've got the run called, but you can throw the bubble, if they're giving you the bubble, or you got the run called and you can throw the hitch if they're giving you the hitch. And now, they're putting the ball in the guy's belly and they're riding it and reading vertical routes downfield, like Serber at McKenzie, they're I don't know now, but when Comer was there, they would ride it and be running the jet and throw the tight end on the seam route. It's really evolved, and it just stresses the defense. And you have this guy that has to fill this running lane, and when he fills that running lane, that's where that guy in that RPO is. So you just pull it and throw it there. Yep. But you got to have the time to do that as a coaching staff. You got to, because you got to turn around and coach those same kids on defense. So that's what. It's always been. I don't understand how people are able to get that done unless they're two platooning. So is
that kind of like having a point guard on the basketball team, the ability to make that quick decision?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have the right guy.
Yeah.
It goes back to your last question right there. What do you look for a quarterback? He better have good reaction time.
Yeah, remember RPOs and that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I know with the NFL, it's kind of moved into the NFL a little bit too, and But I think it was like around 2009, 2000, somewhere a little over a decade ago now, when they changed that rule where a lineman, the neutral zone was 3 yards. Now, used to in high school, it was 2 yards. Have they changed that in high school, that neutral zone after the snap?
It's three.
It's three now? Okay. So, because I know that was the big thing that offensive coaches love is now my lineman can cheat a little bit getting downfield and not be called for illegal man downfield. Do y'all see a lot of calls? How many of you run RPO?
We do.
We did a little.
We have some very little in it, but it's not something that we do extremely well right now. So
is it like running the used to with the triple option? If you're going to be good at it, you got to commit to it. Is it one of those things, or is something if you got the right guy, they can pick it up pretty easy?
I think if you're running it and you're reading routes downfield, it's more commitment to it, in my opinion. But if you're pre-snap reading it, I get up here and they're not covering the guy in the slot and I can throw the bubble, that's a little easier because it's less pressure on the quarterback there. Okay, I know what I'm doing. It's going to look like run. All these people are blocking run. The only people the quarterback's the only one that knows, and you count on your receiver to make sure he's running his bubble.
Right.
So I think there's less time involved in that type of RPO.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time working it, but we ask a lot out of
So in your practice plan, you got a whole segment just RPO.
Everything is pretty much
geared around
off that. Yeah, but it does. It's triple option. It's just a different way of. We don't run the wishbone. We just spread them out. But we're reading different people and throwing different things.
So hitting those seams against Dyersburg Friday night, those were RPOs.
Yep. It was all read stuff.
Okay. All right. Coach, y'all say y'all were running it some too?
Yeah, well, we scored on one last week, a little RPO, but it's like we want to. We start off doing a little more than what we're probably doing right now. Just kind of got away from it.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far into that because I know some three y'all playing each other, so we got to be walking eggshells right there. I get it. All right, let's as far as innovations, what about Heupel's offense? That he's kind of evolved where they're lining up outside the numbers. I remember I used to coach defense. I'd tell a corner never go below the numbers, but now that guy's right there on the sideline. So what are y'all's thoughts? Is that possible without arm strength at quarterback to be able to run that kind of stuff they're doing now?
No, I don't think so. I think that's the whole deal. If you stretch them out and stress 53 in the third and make them play the whole thing, you got to be able to get it out there.
Yeah.
If you can't get it out there, I don't think it's near as productive as it would be.
And the tempo is a big part of that too. Like Coach Pitt, you putting a ton of pressure on the defense, you get them way spread out, and if you're going fast, you get somebody eventually going to do something wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think now, maybe especially the last two games. Some of y'all Vols fans, y'all, yeah. So, it seems like the last two games we're starting to figure that out after been there enough. People are getting it. Yeah. Yeah. We don't raise our hands much loud or as high as we did last week. All right, what about technology? I've not been to a football game in the last few years where there wasn't a drone flying above a field. So how's technology changed the game a little bit?
We got, now there's replay, I know we got.
That's crazy.
We have an end zone camera and a sideline view, and the guy up in the booth is controlling the end zone camera. And so when he hits record, it records from both angles, and you get that on the sideline. I mean, it's not just simultaneous, but it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's before the next, by the next play. So you're getting a shot of what's going on from multiple angles. And
So as head coaches, do y'all have time to go look at that, or is your coordinators looking at that?
I have a guy that handles that,
Okay.
and he just any information that I'm needing, he's feeding me that information.
Okay, so he's looking and using the headset to
Yeah,
talk to you.
yeah.
Okay.
I look at it just off my phone in my pocket when I get a chance. But we have an iPad that, like Coach is talking about, somebody communicates what's going on. The kids, like our quarterback, he looks at it constantly every time he comes off.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones. It's crazy at our level. We're the only ones that can have video on the sideline. Like the other ones can have stills, where it's just images
Right.
versus where we have like true video.
Right.
So that's definitely helpful.
So the quarterback can actually watch how secondary's rolling or
Everything. It's crazy.
The iPad's helpful with that. Like I said, you can get somebody to bring it to you, and you can stay up there in the action and whatnot. And but I think it's great just for the kids, like being able to see it. But it's really easy for someone to come to the sideline and say, "Well, I didn't do that," like whatever. And then you pull it up, and you're like, "Well, that ain't you," like running inside right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
tape don't lie, right?
But then again, and of course, on the offensive side, being able to adjust to what they're doing defensively, because of course, people are going to try to mix it up and get a defense of the week, and you got to adjust on the fly. It's a lot easier if you can see it and see it back than it is just kids trying to communicate, hey, this is what I'm seeing, because a lot of times they'll say that and you go back and that kid's nowhere where you said he was, and so we can actually make better adjustments off of it.
So do y'all like having that capability? I mean, I know it's
Yes, but I think if you did away with it and everybody was back to the same playing field you were years ago, it would be. I always felt we started doing it in 2015 just because I felt like you were at a disadvantage if you didn't have it and the other team did.
Sure.
But I think if you went back to, it would be good too. I would not want to go back to not having a drone where I could watch with the kids after the game.
Well, I watched the drone. It's Huddle. It's Huddle what everybody's using now, and then all those different angles feed in the Huddle. I watched a drone footage, that bird's eye view, and that was the greatest thing in the world for the first time. What about helmets? I mean, how many helmet options are there? I know concussions and safety and technology. Going back how technology's changing the game. What's a helmet run now?
Whatever you want to pay for it.
Whatever you want to pay. Yeah.
Whatever you want to pay.
Yeah.
So we don't always have that option in high school. So what are we typically paying for a helmet now?
$350 to $400.
$350
depending on if they have
$400 for a
deals.
helmet.
Yeah. If you want a good one, like the Rydell Flex, the Speed Flex is what you see, where everybody's wearing the Schutt F7. You see most high school teams wearing those two helmets, and that's what people are wearing on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah. When I got out of coaching was right when the Revolution came out, where they extended that mandible plate that came down, thinking that would help, as far as safety. But are you seeing all these new designs? I mean, are you seeing a decrease in concussions, or, are they helping, I guess is what I'm asking?
I think everything they do is going to help.
A little bit?
Yeah. But yeah, the Rydell Speed Flex is what we mostly got all our kids in.
Okay. Well, I know again, I was walking through the living room, going back to this new game the kids are playing. And I'll be honest, I've played a little bit too, this college football 25. And, my son's got it on the TV and he's flipping through there. And I was just fascinated by how many helmet options are out. He spent more time on that than anything. I was trying to pick the helmet he was going to be in. But I know safety's driving a lot of innovation right now. So even talking about tackling techniques, have y'all adjusted how you're coaching tackling now? I know in the NFL on down, they've worked on that. So, if I've never played, how would you coach me in 60 seconds how to tackle? What would y'all tell me?
I don't know, I don't want to speak for the coaches, but my whole life I was taught, get your head across.
Yeah.
And you get your head in it. And now the whole deal is keep your head out of it.
Right.
And so I think for coaches, that was I know it was for me, a big adjustment of this new way of teaching. I do like the new way of teaching. It makes sense. Right. It's more of a rugby style than it is, like what I was accustomed with growing up. But we've seen less injuries, from that, I think, from
That's
teaching
good.
that way.
So it's more of a lead with the shoulder now technique? Yeah.
Pete Carroll and the Seahawks had a big deal teaching that hawk tackling. Yeah, they were one of the first ones that kind of really put it out there. And then once they did, it's just everybody, any clinic you go to, it's going to be some form of hawk tackling that they call it.
Okay. And so that's
all
not
about-
necessarily head in front now?
Yeah, it's head to the hip. You're near shoulder, near hip is what they talk about. And if you're a linebacker, near shoulder, near pec. So you're not just taking the head out of the tackle.
Yeah, keeping it, yeah.
Yep.
I think that's as important for us at the smaller schools as anybody just trying to keep our kids on the field.
Right.
You know, a lot of us can't afford to have multiple injuries in a night because it's going to hinder the team. So I think being able to have safer tackling and having something to keep kids on the field is hugely beneficial for us as well.
So have they made any changes as far as tackling? You know, I know you can't horse collar, and in the NFL now they've banned what's called a hip drop tackle. Have they? Is any other changes in high school as far as what you can't do tackle wise?
The horse collar is extended now.
Yeah.
It comes around as
Oh, so
opposed to
it's
just in the back
not
now.
just behind. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Learned that last year a couple times.
Okay.
The hard way.
Yeah,
Some officials coached you up on that.
yeah, they did. I was like, "There's no way he's in front." He goes, "Doesn't matter." I was like, "Oh, okay."
All right. Well, we'll wrap up. This is what I'm gonna call a speed round. So you kind of got an either or for the most part. So just kind of think what comes to mind, and we'll go around, and I'll throw another one out, and I've got a few of these to go through. So first question goes Lampkins. If you'll start us off here, if you could only run one coverage all season, what would it be?
Oh, I would run a 2 read.
2 read, Coach.
To read.
Yeah, it's the ideal one. Yeah.
2 read,
Yeah.
same. All right. Best NFL player in your lifetime.
Ed Reed.
Ed Reed. Okay.
Ray Lewis.
Is that because you safety?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Ray Lewis. All right.
Troy Polamalu.
Ah.
Ken Norton Jr.
So we got some defensive guys in here. It seems like. Topic of leadership. Is it born or is it made?
I'd say born.
Okay.
I'd say both.
Oh, so that's not an option.
I think it is. Though. I think you're born with it, but I think somebody has to teach you how to do it. I mean, I think it is. I think it's
It's
both.
got to be modeled.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
I believe it's made.
You think it can be made? All right,
I
Coach?
believe you can be born. You're born leaders, but also you can turn somebody else into a leader.
Okay. So it can be modeled, you think?
Yeah.
All right. With a weekend of upsets in college football, who's your pick to win the college national championship?
Man. I guess Ohio State right now is the.
Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, Coach.
That's gonna hurt me. I can't do it. Tennessee. I still think Tennessee.
All right, go Vols. I'll go with you. All right.
Texas.
Texas.
I should have picked.
That's what
Texas.
that
I
was
should
what's
have
gonna
picked
hurt me.
Texas.
Yeah.
I'm a Florida State. I'm a Florida State fan. I'm already hurt this year.
Oh, that's been a bad year for you, for sure.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
With the new playoffs, I mean, we got to go Vols.
All right, go Vols if they can get in. All right. If you had the number one NFL pick, would you use it on offense or defense?
Offense.
All right.
Offense.
Okay.
Edge rusher.
All right, so going D.
Offense.
All right, so we got 3 O's and 1 defense. All right. Favorite special teams unit to coach?
Punt return.
Punt return,
Punt block.
punt block,
Like kickoff.
kickoff. Okay.
I'm going to go with punt because we're going to do some fakes.
Mess with the mind a little bit.
Yeah, we know all about that at Gleason.
All right.
They got us on one. It was a good one.
All right. So in terms of uniforms, alternate uniform or traditional uniform?
I like alternate. I like to mix it up.
All right, mix it up.
Alternate.
Mix it up.
Traditional.
Go with orange and white.
Yeah, solid, traditional.
Solid and traditional. All right. No, it's a big thing now. It blew my mind when a few years ago when they said like the second or third thing a recruit looks at in college is how many uniforms you got now. I'm like, rather than all the other things that you're going to get in college, what are you dressed up in? But anyway, next speed round question: natural or artificial turf?
Natural.
Okay.
Artificial.
Okay.
Artificial.
Natural.
All right. So we got a tie on that one. All right. You get one quarterback. Are you going to pick Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Patrick Mahomes?
Tom Brady.
Mahomes.
Mahomes.
Tom Brady.
Mahomes.
All these Vol fans, we're not going to get a Peyton Manning out of the bunch.
Well, it matters who we got to go around him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what we're going to build.
That was the other night. Mahomes was unreal.
Yeah.
Like he was playing flag football.
That's right. All right. High school NIL deals, yes or no?
No.
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 Solid consensus. All right. Let's see. Make sure I hadn't skipped one here. All right. Last two. Here we go. 3rd and long, tie ball game, 4th quarter, ball's on the plus 45. Do you bring pressure or play coverage?
Pressure.
Okay, so we're going to run pressure.
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 All right, so everybody's going to go get them. We're going to be aggressive. All right, last question. You're at home, down 7, playoffs on the line. Your team scores on 2nd and goal to set up the tie with 20 seconds left on the clock. Do you kick or go for 2?
2.
2.
2.
All right, you heard it. We got some aggressive coaches. We're going to go with pressure and go for the win every time. Well, coaches, I could keep going, but we appreciate you taking the time. I know your principals won't know where you are right now. But thanks for coming in, and we wish you the best of luck in the rest of your seasons. And, on behalf of both the rest of the school system and all our families, and even as a parent, as a player, thanks for what you do for pouring into our kids. In 23 years, that's an entire generation right there in Gleason that you've, so what y'all are doing to build up young men in our county, we appreciate it. So best of luck, and we'll have you on again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this first of hopefully many bonus episodes. Big thanks also to all of our head football coaches for being a part of today's podcast. We really appreciate them and all that they do for our schools. And remember, you can catch us on demand on Google Podcast, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow us, rate, and review the episode so that we can build more great content just like this about all things education right here on the Growing Our Future in Weekly County Schools podcast. Thanks so much for listening.